Hey, what's up? My name's JM Chaley and welcome to my channel. This month I'm doing 31 author tips in 31 days through the entire month of July 2024. 31 tips in 31 days. And this is tip number 18. And I want to talk about writing software. There's tons of writing software. And we tend to like what we like, right? We kind of pick something and we go, this is what I like, this is what I write in. And that's that. And then there's certain camps that, it's like Scrivener. Scrivener brings out such emotion in some people. The staunch defenders and the haters, right? We're going to get into Scrivener. And then there's all these other options. So I want to kind of talk about the options. And maybe you've already dug your heels in and you have the writing software that you use and that's it and you'll never be budged. But it's worth taking a look at some of the stuff that's out there just to see if your direction could be changed depending on what you're doing. But let's talk about Microsoft Word, because I think that's the big one, right? Microsoft Word. You're on your computer, you got Microsoft Word, or Google Docs, right? Any kind of just vanilla word processing program. You write your thing, it's one big document, or maybe you do chapters in individual documents, however you do it. Very easy. There you go. I don't think there's much more to say about that. What's the alternative to that is something that is specifically designed for writers, for manuscripts, for novels. That's something like NovelPad. I haven't used NovelPad. I can't really speak to it, but I needed to mention it just so it's out there. The reason I haven't used it is because I usually use either Scrivener or Word, depending on what I'm working on. And they meet my needs. And I've looked at NovelPad. It does all kind of the same stuff. I think it's more on par with a Scrivener, but with more features like Word. So it's kind of the best of both worlds, but I haven't used it. But it's worth me mentioning. Which brings me to Scrivener. So Scrivener is... You could use it for writing screenplays, you can use it for writing novels. It is a writing tool. Now here's the delineation that I like to use depending on why you're using Scrivener versus why you're using Word or something like Word. If you're self-publishing, meaning you're just going to take your manuscript and write it in Word or whatever and then dump it into a formatting program like Atticus or Vellum, and then save that as a PDF and EPUB and publish yourself, then Word's fine. If you're looking to become a traditionally published author, or if you are a traditionally published author and you're writing your next book, which will be traditionally published, then something like Scrivener would be better than Word, in my opinion. And the reason is there are tools and functions built into Scrivener that allow you to dump out your manuscript in a format that agents and publishers want. So when they get your manuscript, it's already going to be formatted, in the right font, type, size, right, double spaced. It's all the formatting is going to be there. You don't have to go into Word and say, I need to do... you could do it in Word, but this stuff is automatically built in to Scrivener. There's a place where you can format your title page, your word count, all these other metrics that go into your novel. That stuff is just automatically generated. So, you just push a button and it's there rather than having to go in and manually format that stuff in Word. The other thing about Scrivener that I like is that you can go in and create different objects for each scene or chapter and choose which one you want to compile when you publish to a manuscript format. So for example, let's say you've got chapter 1, right? And then you make some revisions to that. Well, you don't have to delete your original chapter 1. You can just copy it to a new little chapter 1 object, right? And then make your revisions there. And when you go to publish, right, when you create your manuscript PDF, you deselect the old revisions. So you have this great versioning control. All these old revisions and stuff, you can kind of go back and go, how did I do that before? In case you want it, right? There's little notebooks you can put in to keep, if you want to take little notes on the side. It keeps track of your word count in a little measuring bar, so you can show your progress. You set little goals for yourself inside. So there's lots of little bells and whistles in Scrivener that are fun. Tons of stuff that I don't even know how to use, or would even probably use if I knew how. There's a lot of cumbersomeness to it, and I think that's why people don't like Scrivener sometimes, is there's a lot of mess to it. But the bare bones function out of the box is it's meant for churning out manuscripts, and it does this by default without any special formatting that you would have to tell Word. So that's kind of the difference. It caters more to traditionally publishing for sure, because it churns stuff out in a format that agents are going to want to see, versus Word, which is a dump of something that you can put right into a formatting program like Atticus or Vellum. You don't need to create a manuscript with all the crazy formatting that an agent is going to see if you're self-publishing, right? So now that brings me to Atticus. Atticus is it is a formatting program, but it's also built, this is kind of their sales pitch, that you could write your manuscript from scratch right there in Atticus and format as you go. You could. It's kind of like, why bother with Word if you could just do the whole thing from Atticus and then format it and then you're done. Vellum is another program similar to Atticus. Or I should say Atticus is similar to Vellum. But I've never used Vellum. I'm not a Mac user. I never went there. Then there's Reedsy. Reedsy's another formatting program that you could write in from scratch, I suppose. But these guys pitch them as word processing programs, but I would probably stick with something like a Word or a Google Docs or a Scrivener or whatever your flavor is. But it's worth mentioning only because they pitch them that way. But if you're traditionally publishing, you're not going to use those programs anyway. You send your manuscript off, right, and then your publisher takes care of the rest. This is self-publishing stuff if you want to write from scratch in your formatting program. I've never done it. I don't want to be bothered with all the trappings of the formatting and how things look and while I'm in the middle of drafting. I don't want to care about what things look like on the page while I'm drafting. I think that's why I don't bother with Atticus, because I'm not in that mindset yet. And I don't care, and I don't want to have to be distracted with what it looks like while I'm writing. That's just me, but hey, you have that option. So that's a bunch of stuff. That about wraps up tip number 18, which is, I'm not sure it's a tip as much as just a review of writing programs. I guess if the tip was anything, it's check out what's out there and see what works for you, and go for it. So yeah, tip number 18, that about wraps it up. If you like this video, please smoosh that like button. And as always, please subscribe. I post every single day in the month of July 2024, 31 tips in 31 days. So I'll see you tomorrow.